Alright, what's up? This is going to take more videos than I thought it would. Probably going to take like 4. So consider this my debunking 9/11 truth movement videos. Not like it's going to matter, because no one's going to listen to me anyway. But, you know, I fulfilled my end of the bargain. I watched what they wanted me to watch. I read what they wanted me to read. The first thing we're going to discuss is a video that was sent to me like 10 or 12 times. And it's called 9/11 Truth in Under 11 Minutes, revised. And so we're going to talk about the things in this video. The first thing that's discussed in this video, I have my shit written down, is talking about the speed of the collapse of the World Trade Center towers. That because they fell in free fall, that shows that there were controlled demolitions that must have knocked the beams out of the way or whatever. Well, first of all, it didn't fall in free fall. If anyone says that they fell in free fall, they're lying. It fell very close to free fall. If they had fallen in actually free fall, then yeah, that argument would hold a lot of water. A lot. I would switch my opinion completely based on that. But they didn't. He talks about the law of conservation of momentum, which basically is, you know, when an object is moving and it hits another object, it transfers some of its energy to that object, and the first object slows. You know what I'm saying? That's kind of a really simple way of explaining it, but that's basically what it is. And because of that, the building would have to not fall at free fall, because even if the weight above it is really huge, it's going to be slowed down at least a little bit by anything it hits. And that's true. That's why the building didn't fall at free fall. It fell very close because of the huge amount of weight that we're talking about here. Now, if the building had been hit further up, or the explosion, not the explosion, the collapse had initiated way up on like the top 3 floors or something, then first of all, the building probably wouldn't have collapsed. And even if it had, it would have taken a lot longer. That's true. But that's not what happened. There was a huge fucking chunk of the building up there. We're talking about the largest skyscraper on the planet then. And that's why it fell so quickly, because of how much weight we're talking about here. So it didn't fall in free fall. That is a lie. It fell essentially, it fell near to free fall, which still, it still adds up with the laws of conservation momentum. It still adds up. There's no reason to assume otherwise. He talks about how Nist did not test for residue of explosions, and he thinks that that's some sort of like huge deal or whatever. And first of all, it's not, because they had no reason to test for explosions. It was quite obvious what brought the building down. When you start with the assumption that there's explosions, or you think because of the evidence you saw that there's explosions, and then they don't test for explosion, that leads you to believe that there's some sort of conspiracy. The reason they didn't test for fucking explosions is because there weren't any fucking explosions. There was no reason to believe that explosives were detonated at all. The building fell because of fucking planes hit it. Alright? But I keep seeing other places people talk about, you know, the explosive residue was found there. I'm like, well, who did the testing? Which one was it? Did they test? Did they not test? And most of the chemicals that they talk about that were found that are linked to explosives are not found only in explosives. They're found in lots of other things, too. Okay? This is the kind of shit that you have to watch out for with these people. There are no coincidences. They see something and they seize on it. And they won't let it go. He talks about how the building is, you know, completely collapsed. There wasn't much of the building left after the collapse. There wasn't, you know, 10 stories left or whatever. You know, parts of it were still intact. There were big beams still left in some places, but most of it was gone. And he says, one would expect there to be beams. What? Who? Who would expect? What the fuck does that mean? That's like when you go on Wikipedia and somebody says, you know, it says, you know, some argue. Who? Who the fuck argued? Fucking citation needed, asshole. Okay? One would expect there to be beams. Why? Why would you expect there to be beams? Because you imagine that there should be beams? No. No. One wouldn't expect there to be beams simply because of the weight and the height of the fall and how much force was behind it. I'm surprised that anything was left standing at all. Okay? One would expect there to be beams. This is the kind of language that you find amongst people who are trying to pass off bullshit. It's an appeal to your imagination. You know, say one would expect there to be beams. You're like, oh wow, I guess you would expect there to be beams. No, you wouldn't. He'll often say in this video, are we really supposed to believe? That's another bit of the language that they use constantly. Throw that in there. It's not important to what they're saying. You know, no real scientist would be like, are we really supposed to? No, that's the language of a conspiracy theorist. He says that Nist says that we are unable to provide a full explanation of the collapse. Now, unfortunately, his citation for that is some sort of file that I can't read on my computer because I don't have the right program. So I'm going to have to find out where that quote came from and what kind of context it was taken out of. Call me back in a second, in like 5 minutes. Alright, bye. Anyway, you know, so I don't have the data on that, so I'm not going to pass judgment on that yet. I'm going to find that, and I'll talk about that in the next video. Okay, the next thing he talks about is the seismic data. Now, he apparently someplace registered the seismic data of what they believe to be the impact of the planes, and that the 9/11 Commission based their time for impact on data taken from the airplane. Now, there is about a 15-second discrepancy between each of these. And the explanation for this is extremely simple. Because he wants to say that the reason there's a 15-second discrepancy is because what was measured on the seismograph was the explosions, and that the airplane impact wasn't registered because the building absorbed the impact or something. Why a building could absorb the impact of a 747 or whatever, I can't remember what the fuck. Why it could absorb the impact of a plane and not the impact of the explosions, I don't know. Why there would need to be pre-explosions when I've never even heard that suggested before, I don't know. But the explanation of this is very simple. There was a 15-second delay before it could get to the fucking place where they registered the seismic activity. That's why. That's the fucking explanation. Holy shit, wow, oh my god, that was so, yeah, that was it. Okay? No searching for it. They saw a discrepancy. There are no coincidences in their heads. Nothing, everything has to fit in just right on the first glance or it doesn't make any sense. That's the fucking answer to the question. You know, I don't understand why it doesn't even fit in with the conspiracy theory. It doesn't make any sense. Why would you need to set off explosions before the plane that you were piloting into the building hit it? Why? For what purpose? If you're claiming that there are also explosions right before the collapse, why would there need to be explosions before? Why? No one has ever talked about that. There's no video of that. There's no audio of that. It doesn't exist. Nobody in the building said that they heard explosions 15 seconds before the plane hit. No one has said that. I don't understand how that anything that they can throw into this they will. Anyway, so that's part one of this little debunking, and I'll settle the other half of this video that I'm discussing in my next video, and then we'll move on to architects and engineers for 9/11 truth. So I don't expect you to believe me anyway, so this is just for fun.